Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So today, inshallah, lesson 6 on Dawah, which is the do's of Dawah. I used to have it do's and don'ts, but I had to change it because there's so many. So what we're going to do really quickly is just go through that list of the do's. We can talk about it later. So these are just a list. You can make them and then write these down, and then we'll go into each slide, which talks a little bit in more detail. Okay? So what are some things a da'i should do while giving da'wah to someone? First of all, have to be straightforward. Okay? Now, this doesn't mean you're all going to hell and, like the first time you meet them and, you use hikmah, of course, and wisdom and so on. But a lot of people, they beat around the bush. Okay? They're not talking even about da'wah. They're not even talking about Islam. I'm talking about people who, if you're trying to get to know that person and so on, the first time you're meeting them, that's different. But like, for example, if you're at a da'wah booth or you are somewhere, please don't just go around and talk about various different things. Focus on one thing, and which is to give them at least the basic message, and then go for that, right? The beliefs, especially Tawheed, and then the belief in the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and so on. These are the main essential things. Make sure you go for that and be straightforward. Avoid unnecessary confrontations, arguments. So a lot of times at the booth, people start debating. They'll come up, they'll be sometimes angry about something or whatever, and they'll make a comment. And one thing I've noticed when I've been giving da'wah is these people, they come up and they're purposely trying to get you mad or waste your time. So they'll start with one topic, you answer it, okay, and it's a pretty satisfactory answer. They're looking at you and they know that, basically I'm seeing them and I can tell that they're really not paying attention. They're going to the next point already. They don't want to listen to what I have to say, okay? Then they go to the second point, the third point, the fourth point, and by the end of it, you've talked to them for an hour where other people could have been listening, or you could have talked to them and they could have been receptive, and these people just wasted your time and they didn't benefit anything. They just wanted to argue with you. So just if you see it going, and what are some signs you can tell that it's unnecessary? Basically, they're going to just argue with you. What are some signs of that happening? Yeah.
Kind of disrespectful personal questions, I guess. Sometimes they'll ask.
Okay, maybe they'll ask some type of personal question that could happen. Yeah.
If they don't indicate that they understand and immediately move on.
Okay, very good. So and you can tell by their eyes. You can just them looking away from you, stuff like that. That when you're talking, they're not even listening. Okay, so if they do that and they don't say anything back, and that's actually one of the do's we're going to talk about. When they're talking, you're listening and you repeat so that they know that you were listening and you understood what they said. That's a very, very important point. We'll talk about that, inshallah. But the point is, over here, when they're not doing that, you can tell they're not really paying attention. And it might be, spend 5-10 minutes with them and then move on, because then they're not really receptive to the message. Keep your eye on the ball and keep the ball rolling. Basically, again, being straightforward, and knowing what your objective is and going forward with that. Using simple language. So sometimes some people might be very, very educated, okay? And you have to kind of get an idea of where what background that person is coming from. If that person's a university professor, usually, with a PhD and so on, and very highly educated, you want to talk to them at a little bit of a higher level, okay, with them, using different maybe examples for that person. Whereas if a person, you can tell, or they even say it maybe themselves when you find out a little bit more about them, that they work at, it doesn't matter where they work, but like they're not very educated, then you use simple language and talk to them in this way. One of the things that I learned is they said to talk at the 7th grade level, okay? For some reason they say that is the level where everyone can pretty much understand you. So how do you know what 7th grade level is? I mean, that's hard to tell, but that's where, the vocabulary and all the different things up to 7th grade. After that, most people, or a lot of people, cannot understand at the higher level. So using simple language, listen with your eyes and your ears, okay? So don't be, when you're listening to them, don't be looking around, okay? Focus on them. Try to make eye contact. Now, if it's a brother giving da'wah to a sister, or like a non-Muslim, lady or something, or vice versa, whatever, then I would suggest don't make that much eye contact. Okay? So now in the US, it's customary, like you're looking right at that person's eyes. Okay, you're just like your eyes are deadlocked on theirs, and you're just, that's the way it's supposed to be. And if you don't do that, then it looks odd. But I say, and that's why we'll talk about this later as well. But there should be, a brother and a sister, or two sisters, the three, brothers and so on at the booth. So sisters can take care of the ladies, and the brothers can take care of the men, and so on. So keeping it separate is important because it could cause fitna, and you want to be careful with that. So again, listen with your eyes, meaning be attentive to what they're saying. Next thing, 70 to 80% of your communication is nonverbal. What are some signs of that person, like nonverbal signs, that person's not paying attention?
Eye contact.
Okay, lack of eye contact?
They
Yeah.
take out their phone.
Okay, so they take out their phone, they start looking at it, they're like, and okay, maybe even start texting, okay, and then all of a sudden they act like they're getting a phone call. Okay, so what else?
Their facial expression.
Facial expressions, okay, what else?
Nodding your head, like.
Okay, nodding your head, right? So these are really, really important parts of communication. And if you're not looking at that person and they're nodding their head, they're in agreement, then move on to that next point, because then they understood that already, right? So making sure that you're aware of this. Yes.
Also smiling.
Smile. We'll talk about that, inshallah. Good. Try to coin statements into a positive manner. Highlight words like good and yes. So when they're agreeing with you again, so I'm glad you agree with that. Okay, so another thing that the Muslims believe and so on, and don't overburden them, right? Don't overwhelm them with the information, but stay with the basics and show that you recognize the fact that they're agreeing with you. Okay, so I'm glad that we're on the same or we agree with this point. Let's move on to the next point, which is believing the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so on. Do not use Arabic words, and we'll talk about that too. But there's actually don'ts. We'll do that. Okay, open gestures and smile. Okay, so if you're standing like this at the booth, what does this tell you? If you have your arms crossed, what would that tell you?
You're stubborn.
Stubborn, but what else?
A reserved person.
A reserved person. What else?
You don't want to be there.
You don't want to be there. What else?
An unfriendly attitude.
Unfriendly, but you're pretty much, this is blocking you from them. Okay? If you're standing at the booth like this, with your arms crossed like this, right? This is saying to that person that there's, we're kind of almost against each other. And there's a book, inshallah, we'll go over next semester. It's a really good book on public speaking, and I don't even remember. I just read it over the summer. It's really good. But anyways, they talk about these nonverbal or these things, and it's important. So open gestures, smiling. So using, and when you're doing this, you can't use your arms or hands, right? You can't explain things like that. So making sure that you do that. Smiling, of course, is important. Find points to agree upon. Agreeing is very important, kind of like the previous one we had. Remember, when you do actually agree on something, then you say, I'm glad you agree with that, and then move on. Okay? So find things that are comparable or compatible with the religious, like if they're Christians, look for the commonalities, right? Present them with concepts that will get you a yes. Okay? So try to, especially in the beginning when you're talking to them about the fundamentals, right? Trying to get them to believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and so on. You try to get them to agree with you again. Acknowledge their questions as intelligent. Okay? So, of course, that would be a don't if you say something like, that was a stupid question. That was very unintelligent of you. Okay? Or, that was very bigot, you're a bigot or something like that. I don't know. It was something negative. You shouldn't use that. So, things like, that's a good question. I'm actually glad that you brought that point up. I can see why you understand it that way. Okay? And then you further explain it, and so on. Another thing to do is ask for a name. Why?
Get friendly.
What?
Get friendly.
Friendly and?
Know their backgrounds, maybe.
Okay, so if you get their name, you get kind of a little bit of information what kind of background they come from. You have a better way or know a better way of giving them da'wah. Yes?
Making the conversation more personal.
Yes, very good. So making it more personal. How many of you guys noticed when the principal or someone who doesn't teach you, okay? The teachers, of course, if they call you by name, that's maybe because they see you every day. But when someone who doesn't see you every time and they use your name to call you, doesn't that make you feel special? Right? Imagine if someone very important used your name. How would that make you feel? Someone who's on TV all the time or something like that, and they used your name. What would happen? You feel really good, right? You feel like I'm important, right? So that's why it's very important to use a name. Kamal.
Was like also ask. It's good to ask for a name, and also get to know, get to find out like the. You can also that will also lead to asking for like the email address, and you can show email them like events that are coming up.
Okay, so good. So once you have a personal connection with them, like the Tasneem said, then you can build upon other things as well. Maybe getting some information from them, which they'll be willing to share. Yeah.
About the name, it is true that, like when somebody important says your name, it makes you feel special. Like an example is, in the Muslim honor roll, the sheikh personally reads the names out loud. It doesn't make any difference whether he reads the names or if they just send a list of names.
Yeah.
It just feels different when he makes a video.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. That the newsletter, the video, whatever newsletter thing, and you're right. When they read it, it just makes you feel because and a lot of people, I don't think they read them either. Those newsletters, but yes.
You know, brother, remember the YouTube channel I told you about? That was easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I'm reading these, I'm finding every single point the guy used them all.
Yeah.
You should like see the video.
Inshallah. Those are really good, and like a lot of da'is, they use the same things. Remember, I told you when I was preparing for this course, I took Kamal Maki's notes and his CDs and different things. I listened to all of them. Muhammad al-Sharif, he has 18 CDs on Dawah. I listened to all of those and took notes. So a lot of them, you'll see that they're similar, because it's basically geared for people who are giving Dawah in the West. So. Okay, so find out the beliefs of your prospect. Okay, so again, finding out some information, what type of background they have. One of the CDs I was listening to, there was an African American family, and one of the guys, he came in and for the first time, and he's meeting them and so on, and he's giving them da'wah as if they were Christians. Okay, so he's talking about Jesus, he's talking about all these different things, and then one of them people, they just kind of like, we're Jewish. Right? And he was shy. He was like, what? Like, African American Jews? Where did that come from? So he was really shocked. So, meaning that you know where you're, the background of that person, and don't make assumptions right away. Right? Because a lot of times, when we see an Arab person, what do we automatically assume? They're Muslim. Okay? Whereas a lot of actually I think the majority of Arabs in the U.S. are Christians or Chaldeans, other religions or other faiths. Is Chaldean a faith or is it
They're just right off the Christians. But
Okay.
They're not even Arabs.
So they're just
They
Chaldean?
just call themselves Chaldeans.
And
Okay.
they're not Arabs.
language.
They're not Arabs. Okay, so where are they from originally?
They're from Assyria, like Iraq.
Oh, okay. Yes.
I remember. I remember what me and my dad were watching a video about Dawah, about using kind words.
Yeah. So we'll talk about that one as well, inshallah.
There's this Arab guy. He was in America. His English is really bad. He basically doesn't know how to talk with the person, and when they look at him, they kind of get offended for the stuff he says. Like when he was offering candy, then when the fat guy came, he was like, and then after he was telling about Islam and everything, and then he was like, okay, I'm going to give you candy because you're fat. I'll give you 3.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God.
What the heck were you just thinking?
I don't remember my dad. I heard it from the other room. My dad was actually watching it.
Yeah. So yeah, you have to be very careful, of course. And that might be like we can make a do's and don'ts video and like things not to do. That would be definitely one of them. Okay. So make the visitor feel welcome. Right. So for example, if you're having someone meet you at the masjid library or different places or different things. Rather than this kind of setup, maybe you could have a round table, okay? And you could have more of like a discussion-based type of thing. So rather than like, I'm just going to talk to you and give you a lecture, we're going to actually discuss things. So you even setting up the room differently. I've seen in a lot of places, they have like this huge round table where you can just sit there and then talk to one another like that. So making it more personal, making them feel welcome and so on. Give up if the person seems uninterested or even starts making fun of you. And that's happened to me one time where one guy came And what he did is he started asking dumb questions, and I was responding to him. Then he gets out his phone, or I'm not a phone. It was a camcorder. Starts recording me. I'm like, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "Oh, I'm going to record your answers." I said, "Why?" And he goes, "Oh, well, just because." He goes, what they do is, he was like this evangelical type of guy. What they do is they'll take your question or the answers, they'll cut it out, paste it, and whatever, and then they'll put it up, and oh, this is what this guy was saying. And I said, "You know what? I'm sorry, I'm not going to talk to you anymore." So I just stopped. And the guy, actually, we were at a Dawah booth at the state fair. The guy next to us, the other table, they were selling like baths, basically. You know those things that bath fitters or whatever they're called. So he came up to me afterwards and he goes, I saw how you handled that and I really like that. And he actually asked for some information after that. So you can see that, like, maybe that guy's being an idiot, but the way that you deal with these people, other people can be influenced by it. So always try to have good manners, and like Kamal said about kindness, and like I was kind or nice to him still, even though he was being rude. I answered him in a polite way. It wasn't like I start getting really mad or made fun of him or retorted in any other way. Okay, go with another sister. This is of course for sisters. If it's for brothers, don't go with another sister. Okay, but if you're with sisters, the point is that sisters especially shouldn't be giving da'wah alone, especially nowadays with the climate and all these negative things in the media. You want to be very careful. Even brothers going alone, it's better to be in a group, 3, 4 maybe sometimes, and so on. And like I said before about if you're at a booth, maybe you're going to a mall or something. If there's like there's two people, it shouldn't just be a man or a brother and a sister. Okay, rather they should have maybe 2 men and 2 sisters, or more numbers, so that you're not having like wrong interactions. Okay, or basically the gender relations that you're not talking to them about personal things, because that happens, right? Sometimes I've had that happen, and we stopped doing that, alhamdulillah. But there was a time we had a booth and we didn't have other volunteers, so I was there and this one older sister was there, and she was older, but still you're sitting there, nobody's coming to the booth, so you start talking about things, right? Oh, how are the kids, or how's this, how's that? And that's fine, you're allowed to have some conversation, but it could become wrong, right? So you don't want to do that. You don't want to stay, especially in a lot of college campuses, right, where there's younger people, they're not even married, and there's nothing, anything like that, and then they're having like deep conversations with the opposite gender. This is not something allowed, and I would suggest even not even doing the booth. If you don't have enough volunteers, then in that situation you don't do it, right? Have 2 brothers, 2 sisters, at least they can kind of like guard themselves, right? Don't let the shaitan be the third of you, or the third person amongst you, or the third thing, whatever, amongst you. Okay, disarm arrogant people. Okay, so if they're being arrogant, what does it mean by disarming them? Put them in their place, but do it in a subtle or nice, kind way. Okay, so don't be rude and just But if they're just you can tell they're just being very, very arrogant. And one of the sad things I've seen at the booths, when we have very, very arrogant people come, they're usually Muslims. Okay, they'll come to the booth, and they're from different parts of the world, and they're either now atheists, a'udhu billah, or agnostics, or other things. They come to the booth and they're just arguing and trying to say all these things, even though they have no knowledge of what real Islam teaches. But they start keep arguing. One time at the booth, this was in California as well. So this Muslim guy, or ex-Muslim guy, comes with it looked like his partner. So they came to the booth, and they're talking, and the guy, the ex-Muslim, he's just going off about all these crazy things about politics and this and that, and I'm responding to him. And we talked for about half an hour. I didn't learn my lesson about, if they're not getting it, just move on. So I didn't understand. I just keep going with the guy. So his partner, okay, he's standing there, and he goes, dude, he explained it pretty well, and it made sense to me. Why didn't you get it yet? And then they just walked away after a while. So this is something that, like, again, you have to disarm them in a nice way that people can try to get it. And some people they won't get it. Again, move on from them. Don't let them waste your time. I have 4 minutes, I think. Okay. So psychology. There's a psychological, you could say, techniques, okay, and these are different ways to basically ask questions and do different things. I don't want to get into the details of this because there's okay, inshallah we'll go over them maybe some other time, but there's like different techniques that you can use to talk to them. So if opportunity doesn't knock, build a door, right? So basically, you have to be proactive when it comes to giving da'wah. You have to look for opportunities to give the da'wah. You cannot just sit there and think people are going to come to you. Oh, I have a beard, so people are going to, or I wear hijab and so on. So people are just going to automatically come to me and ask me about something. Most people won't, okay? So you have to find opportunities on how to give them da'wah. Another thing to do or to have is what type of knowing your own personality, okay, and what you're good at and so on. So we're not going to have time to go over this. So basically, it's kind of like this quiz that we can take for if you're an extrovert or introvert. And I'd like to give you this for maybe homework if you can, or maybe you've done it already. But there's quizzes that you could take, or surveys mostly, and you can find out if you're more extrovert or you're introvert. Extrovert are those who are really outspoken. They're very outgoing and so on. Introverts are usually a little bit more quiet and so on. So I would suggest taking that, and then we'll talk about this when you guys come back, or on Friday next week, next time, inshallah, about what are the differences. But yes.
I remember Sheikh one making go over this introvert and extrovert. And how to
Yeah.
talk to the different people.
It's so why is it important to know?
So I mean, if you're an extrovert, how to deal with an introvert. If you're an introvert, how to deal with an extrovert.
Yeah.
How to recognize the signs of the person.
Very good. So if you're like being loud and just really in their face, and you didn't think or you didn't realize they were introverted, they're going to be scared away. They're going to just walk away, right? And then if you're really calm and collected and just so quiet with an extrovert, right? Then definitely they're going to be like, what's wrong with this guy? So you have to kind of be able to change, and we're all different, and everyone's, like for me, I believe I have very few friends, which is like I'm definitely an introvert, but sometimes you need to be an extrovert, right? So when you're speaking and you're teaching and you're doing different things, you have to be an extrovert. So it changes from time to time, and that's the thing that you have to be able to be cognizant or understand, what type of background you have. But we'll go over that inshallah afterwards, after the break. Yes, quickly, come on.
Like I said, like you said, about being introvert, it's something that's to not have much friends, something not even to have any friends, as long as you can be able to communicate.
Yes, but I believe that you should have certain friends or someone close to you so that you can talk to them once in a while about some important things. You might not have someone, maybe brothers or sisters or someone else to help you or talk to you. So it's good to have some friends who understand you. Okay, next thing, knowing your way around the kitchen. Okay, so basically, you need to know how you're going to be, or who you're speaking to, okay, and what tools or da'wah tools to use when, right? So, for example, if you're talking to a Mormon, okay, should you talk to them about the Bible?
No.
Why not?
I said yes.
Huh?
No, I meant yes.
No, but why should we talk to Mormons, or why shouldn't we talk? Actually, the answer is why we shouldn't talk to them about the Bible.
I think the different Christian denominations believe in certain books other than some of them don't believe in.
Very good. Okay, so the book of the Mormons, they actually don't believe in the Bible at all.
I thought they had like a specific.
It's called the Book of Mormon. It's by Joseph Smith. So it's totally, and if you read it, it's funny. But anyways, yeah.
Out of all the denominations, I think they're like best.
Their khuluq is best.
They don't like drink alcohol.
Yeah, they have a lot of good qualities.
Polygamy.
But yes, not only polygamy.
Polygamy.
Yeah, and they don't anymore, but they secretly do it in Utah and different places. But
They say they don't, but brother, in
Yeah.
actuality, there's.
It's halal with limits.
yeah,
Well,
so
they have like 19 to like
Yeah.
36 wives, and you're like,
yeah.
holy.
So
Yeah, there's.
Jehovah's Witnesses, different religions or different denominations, they believe in different things. So you need to know who you're talking to, and try to evaluate them in the first 3 minutes or so. Who are you saying or talking to? Yes.
They think of wives
Well, see, first of all, you have to talk to them about where, like, for example, their name. Okay, that's one thing. Second thing, maybe like once you're into the conversation, then you could talk to them or ask them. What church do you go to? Okay, and that's a very like you don't have to. If they say, "Oh, I go to the Southern Baptist whatever church," then that gives you okay. He's a Baptist and he's a certain mentality, and that's the thing though. After years, you're gonna build into that. You're not gonna the first time you're talking to a non-Muslim and you say, "Hey, what church do you go to?" And they go, and like, what? Okay, I have no idea what that is, right? Because they have all like 7-day Adventists. I don't know what the heck that is. So it's a denomination, but that's the thing. So you build into that, like, oh, so what kind of what makes you different than the Catholic Church, for example? Then you can they could give you that information. Last one we'll talk about today is smiling. So we mentioned this, but don't look fruity, okay? So don't smile too much where they think there's something wrong with you, but just have, like a smile, a calm thing, and not an awkward smile either. And don't make fake smiles either, because people can tell. How can you tell if someone just fake smiled at you? Trying too hard, or? We're really good at that. I mean, in the masjids and different things, we're really good at that. What else?
They look awkward.
It's quick, isn't it? Oh, assalamu alaikum. Okay. Yeah, I don't really want to meet you, right? But so it's very quick, and some other people are just so fake. Assalamu alaikum, and they're like, big smile and like, yeah, I don't even know you really. So what are you talking about? So, but there's advantages of smiling. So what are they? First, it conveys that you have confidence. Okay, if you're very, very unsure of yourself and you're very nervous, usually you're not smiling. Okay, maybe you're sweating, but you're not smiling. So smiling shows confidence. Another thing it does, it shows that you're happy. Okay, not that other type of happy, but you're happy, right? So, or you're not too happy, right? So you're happy though.
Other type of happy. Brother, isn't there a hadith about smiling?
Yeah, the other type of happy. What?
Brother, isn't there a hadith about smiling?
Yeah.
And like smiling in front of your brother or sister sounds like kind of like charity.
Sadaqah and charity, yes.
That's the question.
Okay, just give me 1 minute. And so it shows enthusiasm, okay, that you're actually happy to be there, you want to be there, right? And then lastly, it shows that you are accepting, okay, you're willing to accept them. And these are from different books as well about public speaking, and different, psychologists have talked about these various things as well. We'll stop here, inshallah. Enjoy your break for Eid.